Hey, how's it hanging? My name's Plaguewood. I wanted to make this video talking about the Gears of War E-Day open beta. I wanted to make this recording after I decided to give it a try, even though I haven't played a Gears of War game since when I was about maybe 12, 13, whenever Gears of War 3 came out. I did play some Judgment, but I don't remember too much about it. But, but yeah, I looked at some gameplay trailers. I saw the e- beta gameplay that was from the prior weekend, so I decided to give the open beta a try. And I thought it was great. Overall, I played about 25 hours or so over the free weekend. I completed all the beta challenges, and I unlocked every cosmetic that you could unlock. I mostly played Horde Siege. I didn't really play Versus too much. I figured I'd save that for the game's launch. I just wanted to check out the new thing they were doing with Horde mode, see how it was going. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. First, I want to talk about the map. I really liked the Golden Corridor. I thought it was very fun to traverse. There were a lot of strategic cover locations that I felt were really put in good spots. I liked how it felt going from mission to mission. It didn't feel like it was too strenuous or tedious. I think the only time I could have felt that was when we go to extraction and then you end up running from one corner of the map to the other, but it was short enough to where that wasn't really a super annoying thing. I also like the little details they put in the map, the papers flying around. I liked these little like miniature guys that you could find in the beginning of the missions that you could just run around on and knock them over. Awesome little interactivity there. And I hope there's a bit more of that in any other maps we see on launch. And that kind of leads into my other thing that I love, which was the whole graphical aesthetic that the game's going for. It looks like it's trying to return back to Gears 1, Gears 2, where it's a lot more gritty and kind of dark. There's a lot of gray color palettes. There was some things that were red and that stood out, of course, being the blood, and then the e-holes that glow so that you know where they are. Another thing that glows is the blue of the cog vision. So yeah, there's some really good visual indicators. Important things are given those, and I think that's great art direction wise, and I'm glad to see that. But I should probably be talking about the mode itself. So when you play Horde Siege mode, you have three things to pick from. There's the Blitz, which is much shorter missions. You basically just do one thing, maybe hold out for like 3 waves, and then you get in, get out. It's meant to be quick. There's the standard difficulty mode, or well, not difficulty, sorry, I mean the standard mode where it's fairly long but still kind of in between. And then there's the Horde, where for 10 plus waves you stay typically in the same spot and you hold out. It's a lot more like the traditional Horde mode in a sense. The only thing that was missing was building turrets. Instead, you can, depending on your class, you could pick these little like turrets with a energy currency and set them down. The energy currency you get is from killing enemies, and then you go pick it up. Certain enemies have more, especially boomers. They drop like 3. Some enemies drop 2, and so on. And you use that to buy like upgrades or restock your ammo or get more grenades. And I thought that this mode was pretty fun. I like what they're doing with the game mode. It feels like it doesn't waste any of its time. The only time there's really any downtime and you're not like getting into the meat and potatoes of fighting or holding out is when there's these 50-second like timers to reset everything up. But that's usually if people are just not paying attention and voting. There's 4 classes you can pick from. There was Assault, Breacher, Marksman, and Medic. They give a pretty basic description of what they do, and they all each get a special ability. Example being Medic has this little thing it throws down that does like a healing area. The Breacher has an adrenaline stim that you've probably seen the gameplay that ejects it and they go crazy. And the Sniper, also in gameplay, has like a drone that locates enemies. I mostly played Medic and Sniper. Medic was just, I like playing medics and I find them very useful. And this class was pretty useful. It was insane. You get a lot of opportunities to revive each other, and your healing aura also revives people who are down that go in it. So you are a pretty good anchor to the team. Marksman's also really fun. The long shot's my favorite weapon from Gears of War. I recently replayed the first Gears of War or campaign. I just love using the long shot, seeing the heads explode. They brought that back for this game. It's always good fun. And another thing to mention is that of those special abilities, I felt like the assault one could use a little bit more oomph to it. I felt like it was very situational. It didn't stun any of the bigger enemies like boomers or the guys with the troikas, which are like those miniguns. And so I kind of felt like it was a bit muted and it had more potential. So, um, another thing to mention is that all classes got unique weapons when they unlock them too. For example, Medic got the grenade launcher, which is probably the best secondary weapon you could take. It was insane. It closes e-holes. It can upgrade to do acid, fire. You didn't get acid, but you got fire, and that alone was crazy. It was just all around a really strong weapon. Breacher gets the disintegrator shotgun, I believe, which is a acid shooting shotgun that some of the locusts get, which is just awesome. It's really strong. A lot better. It's like an improvement over the Gnasher. Speaking of the Gnasher, it kind of felt like it needed a little bit more range to it. I felt like it really had to just shove the weapon in the person's player model to actually explode them or get a down or an instant kill, which could be annoying. And of course, Marksman's was the long shot and snipers, and then I believe Assault gets like the Ripper, which is sort of like an LMG. And what I love about the weapons, mainly in this game, that reminds me of those older Gears games, was the weight feels like it's back into them. You know, you take the chainsaw lancer, which is the prototype in this game, you just rev it through someone. It feels like you're actually cutting through all that bone and sinew, and it's rough. Rough, and I'm glad they brought that back. I looked at footage of some of the newer games, and it looks like it was missing that and just kind of weird. Now, apart from that, there were some other issues I had with the Horde Siege mode. One of which is probably my biggest, is the friendly AI. The AI that replaces people who crash or disconnect. It was abysmal. During a Blitz infantry mission, infantry is like the standard difficulty above rookie for the beta. One of our squad mates got DC'd, of course, and he was replaced with Private Grimbles, which is already a good name. And after a kind of brutal struggle, we completed the mission, and then we went to extract, but we were taking a little bit to go more than usual because we looked around and saw Private Grimbles was all the way back, like 300 meters at the zone we were just defending at. This is kind of crazy. I noticed they kind of lack damage or anything really useful when we're fighting enemies. I think I've only ever seen them get down and then have to go revive them, or they just sit in cover and don't do much. They play like weirdly overly defensive. I think it could use some tweaking. The only other AI complaint I kind of have is it seems like the enemy AI has some weird target choices. Uh, I remember we were fighting side by side with another Gears squad, and then that team of enemy AI that spawned to fight us actually went to go harass them instead, so we had to bail them out, which is kind of funny. But that brings up another thing. I mentioned another squad. In going back to Horde Siege, you end up in a map with about 8 other players, which is to say there's 3 teams of 4 players, and you work around doing your objectives, but you can also encounter them and help them with their objectives. There's also secondary objectives that you guys can complete. There's more survival kind of ones. There was one to defuse bombs. There's one to gather intelligence, shoot these like communication device things. I'm not sure what they exactly were off the top of my head. But yeah, there was plenty to do around the map as well. The main mission that you spawn in to do is not timed, even on Blitz, where I maybe think it should be, since it's supposed to be quick. But you can go around and do whatever you want. The only timer that starts is when you're doing the mission or a secondary mission. If you fail a secondary mission, that secondary mission goes away. But if you fail the main mission, you get a chance to do it again. The last thing I want to mention is a special surprise that I found when I was playing, which was there were bosses in the map. Sometimes the game would warn you that there's a boss spawning, and it was something like a Brumac or a really big corpser that you would have to fight, and you can't really do it alone. So all of the squads of players would come together, and we'd take them down, and then we get rewarded for it. We'd either get a ton of energy, some perk upgrade. And that's what I like about these side objectives too, is they're very rewarding. Or they give you incentive to want to go take care of those things instead of just brushing them off as, oh, it's pointless. Especially when the bosses do stuff like, hey, you're not gonna reload as get perfect reloads, or I'm jamming your signals. So now you can't really, so now your UI is being glitchy. Just get rid of that annoying stuff. There are also some minor things you could get, like supply drops or like a perk cache, but those kind of didn't really impact too much. The perk cache could be useful, but it typically spawned with enemies, so we didn't really go out of our way to get them if we were busy. There is one thing I want to mention last, which was back on weapons, and it's the modifications. You can mod the weapons. You can give them scopes. You can give them improvements like barrels, grips. You don't really notice any graphical changes apart from like having scopes and bayonets. The bayonets were a pretty good inclusion. You can put one on the Gnasher or like the Hammer Burst, which is a burst rifle, and those are awesome. But some of the mods just felt kind of useless, or well, not useless, but unimpactful. You'd barely find a use for them. Some things wouldn't really, they'd be very situational. And I found that they gave little, you know, impact in game, and I wish they would maybe do a little bit more. But other than that, I had a huge blast with Horde Siege. I played it pretty much every day I could. I loved playing it. Even after about the 60th Horde Siege mission, I was still going in with a smile on my face. I think the gears, aesthetic, and like I said, the weight and just the combat and everything that adds to it just makes it so much fun, even if you are running around the same map where you've done this mission like 7 times already. That's what convinced me to eventually buy the game. I would recommend doing research before you do so, because you always want to be smart with your money and make sure that it's something you're interested in. And but I would recommend looking into it. I had a great first impression and overall time with this beta, and I'm really looking forward to what the game